Hello, and welcome to this week's Astro Talk, where we will be discussing the transits taking place from April the 13th through to the 19th. I'm Audi Solaris, and on the 16th, we are going to have Mercury re-enter Aries. After Mercury's time in etheric, dreamy, magic-centric Pisces, any revisions that took place during that time, Mercury now returns into Aries with greater clarity on the boundaries that it wants to set back up in place. Perhaps when Mercury returned into Pisces, some boundaries faltered, they maybe went away, perhaps we even had to inspect a few of them. Now that it's in its forward movement, still in shadow, Mercury can say, actually, I want that boundary up, let me cut this tie, and let me maybe burn that bridge away. That's very much the Mercury and Aries vibe. That doesn't always mean that we have to run with it entirely. This is just sort of the energy that can start to roll through again. And because we had a little bit of Mercury in Aries earlier in the year for its ingress into Pisces, we could very well be returning to a specific situation or conversation or a idea or thought process that was going on earlier in the year. And so with this fiery, loud Mercury, what is it that has maybe shifted since its retrograde station, since its retrograde process, especially after the eclipses as well, given that Mercury did rule the first round of eclipses here with Virgo? What process did you undergo that maybe shifted your perspective entirely, shifted maybe the way in which you want to think about a situation entirely, the way that you want to advocate for yourself, the way that you defend yourself even, and defend the things that you care about, and moving with that forward? It's a good signature to pick your battles wisely and to be very mindful of, is this worth me using my cutting words for, or do I need to maybe lean a little bit more into my capacity to cool down first? So Mercury in Aries loves a good argument, likes to get heated, and that can be very fun and playful. However, if you're not wanting to get into any actual heated arguments that are not constructive and that will just burn you or burn someone else, then be mindful of that. We are going to have a lot of fire in the sky right now, and so it's going to absolutely show up in our conversations with others and our conversation with ourselves. Depending on where in your chart this falls on, you could just be receiving much faster, more ignited communications about this specific field. And later in the day, it's going to conjoin Neptune and Aries for the first time in our life. We have never had this aspect. That's a pretty big deal. And Mercury being the mic that it is, it's going to allow for Neptune to start sharing what it's going to be all about in Aries. We're not going to get the full message just yet. However, we're probably going to start hearing more about this new influence, because again, Neptune in Aries is this hero's journey, is this sort of warrior, spiritual warrior archetype. And so as Mercury returns into Aries, it's absolutely going to open up the floor for Neptune to share this first round of messages that it wants to. Moving forward, Neptune is absolutely going to be influenced by Mars and Mars's condition, and we're going to get to that when we reach the end of the week. But because Mars is still in Cancer at this time, very briefly, there is this connection happening between, okay, we're going out of our comfort zone here a little bit. This is new territory, it's uncharted territory, but what is the new dream that wants to be birthed? So this cycle is not going anywhere. Going forward, Mercury will make these aspects, Mars, all the other planets will make these aspects to Neptune and Aries. And so with this first conjunction, just pay attention to what wants to come through. That's sort of laying the intro to Neptune and Aries for us in this moment in time. Very exciting. And then Thursday, the 17th, we have Mars re-ingressing into Leo. Mars has been in Cancer for the last couple of months, 3 months, and it's finally out of its fall. Now that it is returning into Leo, it's still in shadow, but we get this more vivacious, bold, in its element, quite literally in its fire element. And even though Mars was in its fall in Cancer, that retrograde likely taught us a lot about how we protect, defend, and nurture what's close to home for us. And now that it's going into Leo, it's saying, okay, I did what I needed to do in that area of my life, and now I can move forward, radiating and emanating my essence. That's Leo, right? It's the light that is within us, our inner fire, our spark. And Mars here wants us to move through the world with that. Anything that was happening in the month of November 2025 will likely maybe surface again. Maybe not in the exact same way given the whole retrograde story, but perhaps similarly. And as Mars finishes out the last couple of degrees of its shadow, it'll exit shadow at 7 degrees Leo. We'll be finding our footing here. We'll be learning how fast Mars wants us to go, how hot it wants to burn, and whatever area of your life this falls in, you may want to be careful about, how quickly you're moving through certain things. We are in a little bit of a recalibration because it's not always easy to go from being home-centric or nurturing-centric or, all of these Cancerian lunar themes to, okay, now we're on this side. Now we're very Leo. We're very loud and bold. It can feel like a little bit of a party, and that's great, and I'm very excited for it. And I also just want to give a word of caution, as I always do, to try to find your footing, try to find your grounding in that, because it can feel like a jolt. Saturday the 19th, hello Taurus. We are in Taurus season. Earthy, sensual, stable, loving Taurus is going to help us ground all of this fire that's in the sky right now. And with Venus no longer retrograde, but still in Pisces, it gives this really beautiful energy of, cool, we just finished the official retrograde part of Venus's cycle right now. And Venus is moving forward through Pisces, retracing its shadow steps. And anything that we've learned from that Venus retrograde, with the Sun now in Taurus, we can take and say, okay, what's practical from that lesson for me to inject into my day-to-day? What did I learn about my values and what I treasure, and integrate that into my life and just make it a part of my spirit? It's not like a one-time thing. This is officially how you move through life. With the Sun in Taurus, there's also this reinvigorated desire to connect with the earth. If you are in the northern hemisphere, then we are in spring. If you're in the southern hemisphere, it's fall, but either way, we are going into this fixed season where we have a second to breathe and to connect with nature as it is. With Sun in Taurus, we can explore what grounded pleasure looks like. Now, especially that we have very likely reimagined and reevaluated what pleasure means to us. I'm not just talking about like physical pleasure. It can be emotional pleasure. It can be etheric pleasure even. With Taurus season, of course, the earth is going to be a theme. If you work with the earth, if you've been wanting to grow a closer relationship with the earth, this is a season that's definitely going to support that. Earth magic is sort of the theme that's coming through right now because, again, Venus is still in Pisces and Taurus is very much that vibe. So this is a good opportunity for you to, forgive me for being cliche, but like go out, befriend a tree. Find a tree that you just feel connected to and be like, hi. Like introduce yourself to the devas, introduce yourself to the elements and start working with it, because it doesn't matter how far removed we have become in this moment in time in whatever society you're a part of, we can always remember the fact that if it wasn't for Mother Earth, we wouldn't be here. We literally come from Mother Earth, and when we die, this body returns to Earth. This vessel is borrowed. And how beautiful and gorgeous that we don't even have to try to be a part of the universe and the earth. We just are. And so it's more this remembrance, but we can always take it deeper. We can always express our gratitude to the earth for holding us, for supporting us. Maybe this is a time where you literally just learn how to recycle. You don't have to start a garden or develop a green thumb. Maybe you can literally just spend more time outside. It's so good for us. It's so good for our energy. And you might think, well, how is this important? How is this valuable considering the moment in time that we're in when there's so much happening in the world? You have no idea. If your aura, if your spirit and your energy is in a place where it is, you're resourcing yourself from the planet, you are getting, and this is going to get really woo-woo if you don't believe in this compost yet, you are getting information from the earth, you are getting codes. Even if there's no language to it, even if you're not doing anything explicitly, you are receiving these codes into your energy body, into your aura. And just in being in proximity with your community or the people that you frequent in your day-to-day, you can transmit that energy to and from. We are constantly communicating with each other energetically. And change on earth, change in consciousness, in working towards a reality that is more aligned with life and with a higher consciousness isn't going to happen overnight. And it doesn't look like standing on a big platform with a microphone, sharing a message to a bunch of people. It looks like that in a very specific situation for very specific kind of people. But for other people, just being yourself and just showing up and just being resourced, that's the way. It's instrumental. And because Sun is in Taurus, we can allow ourselves to become a tool for movement, a vessel for this energy of change to move through. We can become an instrument, and it's something that it can be as simple as going outside and grounding, and then maybe you're hanging out with a group of people later that evening and you just feel lighter, you just feel grounded, you just feel yourself. Subconsciously, you are giving other people permission to tap into that part of the energetics in their own aura. And this isn't to say that we are oblivious to genocide that's happening in the world in Palestine. This isn't to say that we are oblivious to climate catastrophes that are happening all around. This isn't to say that we're oblivious to the immigration camps happening in the United States. I'm going to just name these things because this is where we're at, and we're not spiritually bypassing this. We are aware that this is what's happening, and we can also still show up in our power intentionally every single day while holding both. Because the solution is not to overgive our power and energy to these horrible things happening on the timeline and burning our heart out and burning ourselves out to the point where we can't function or do much because we are rightfully so in grief and in sadness and in anger. And the solution is also not to pretend that it's not happening and to turn a blind eye and just be like, la 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 la, I'm gonna go hug a tree and everything is rainbows and butterflies. We have to marry it. And so how are we mitigating our knowledge of the events happening around us and still taking care of our physical and spiritual body, of our mind, and in our heart? How are we taking care of ourselves? And how are we helping our communities feel strong and resourced just by showing up being ourselves? Maybe that's you're just allowing yourself to take up space. You allow yourself to laugh, to relax. And this is a good foundation to build upon. Let me just say that. Not everyone identifies as an activist in terms of going out to protests and being very immersed in that. Some people are medicine makers. Some people work more for the community. Whatever it looks like, how you show up for others in the world, this is a good moment to really ground into, okay, what is available within that? How can I do that? And if it is as simple as, I'm just going to work with the earth. I'm just going to tune into what the earth wants to share, and I'm going to emit that to whoever is aligned with that. And it doesn't have to be a spoken conversation. It can be just in our spirit. Mercury is in Aries. It's a very vibey, fiery, kind of spirit directed place. So maybe a lot of these communications are coming through very fast through that energy. I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but needless to say, Sun in Taurus is a really good time for us to just ground, try to stabilize after a really bumpy last couple of months. And with that, later in the day, we have Mars in Leo trining Neptune in Aries. Again, first of its kind. We have not ever in our lifetime had Mars in Leo trining Neptune in Aries. This is just very exciting to be a witness to. And it's gonna show up in your chart. And this is the first spark of it. And Mars wants to get this show on the road. So Mercury just conjoined Neptune and held up that microphone saying like, okay, like what message do you have to share? What are you all about? Mars is like, all right, let's go. Let's like kick off the show. Let's start the circus. Let's do the thing. I say circus, not in a negative way. I think it's just tying it into this whole performance vibe because Mars is in Leo. With this trine, Mars wants to kind of get the ball rolling. It's going to start showing us perhaps how Neptune in Aries is literally moving through our lives. And it's a bit of a hype man. This trine really kind of encourages Neptune to kind of do its thing. Not that it really needed it, but because Mars is so empowered and emboldened now, Mars is ready to do the whole thing. And because Neptune can be a bit of a performer, a little bit of an artist in this way, we perhaps get more of those archetypes of the spiritual warrior, the spiritual artist, of leaning into bold action for the greater good even. It is a moment where we have vision-driven movement. We see the dream or we see the goal and we are going towards it. Neptune is almost kind of reeling us in this way, and Mars is like, yeah, I've got the speed, I've got the fire, let's go. This can be a period as well where we see a lot of performative activism. I hate to say it, but it's in the astrology, and it can be an amplified moment for egomania sort of energy, especially in online spaces. Just be careful of that. I think that the even ground to find between this transit is to check in with yourself and say, what's the intention behind what I'm doing right now? I'm making this really bold move towards this thing, and it's for this specific cause or this specific fight, and fighting the good fight. And how much of it is because it makes me look good and my image look good, and how much of it is to actually help and support people. If it can be both, amazing. Mars is in Leo, it's gonna do that, it's gonna be that, but we need to temper that, because otherwise it's gonna bite us in the ass. It's not gonna come off as authentic, it's not gonna come off as skillful or helpful, and so that's just my little bit of advice there. That was interesting. Hello? Okay. No worries, we have more. That's so funny. I wonder what happened. This feels like a wake up. Like maybe we've been dreaming and kind of sleepy, and we're like, like coming back to life, and we've got this like Aries and Leo energy saying like, come on, let's go, let's get up and moving, with a dose of Taurus saying, okay, but we're gonna do it right. We're gonna be grounded about it. We're gonna be in our senses about it. We're going to be in our body about it. And so I think that this week strikes like a good amount of balance, and it's fiery, but it's sensual. It's, dynamic and inspiring, but it's also rooted and centered around what sustains us and what is practical. So play into this energy in whatever way makes sense for you, very likely in the areas of your chart holding Aries, Taurus, Pisces as well, and Leo. With that, it's time for us to draw a card for the week, just to see what it is that we most need to know for the week of April the 13th. I invite you to take a deep breath and to allow yourself to just find this moment of stillness in your day. What is it that we most need to know in alignment with greatest and highest good of all involved, with Mother Earth, with the animal kingdoms, planet kingdoms. Oh, I drew 2 cards by accident, but it's not actually an accident, is it? We've got the 4 of coins, or 4 of pentacles, and then we have Judgment. Cool. So with these two cards, this is feeling like what I was speaking to about performative activism. We have a figure that is just absolutely grounded and rooted in his material possessions, in his values, in their worth. Their feet are resting on pentacles. They are clutching to a pentacle. They have a pentacle on their head. Everything about this person is very much around what makes sense, financially, what makes sense in terms of my values, what makes sense in terms of how I move in the world. Do I have what I need materially? They're on a little bit of a stage with a kingdom behind them. Are they hoarding resources? Possibly. They are cloaked in a black sort of cape here. Maybe there's a little bit of a not wanting to share a bit of this abundance, or maybe not sure how to let go of trusting that their needs will be met or that their values will be met. And they have a crown too, so maybe this is like a king. Something about the head of a kingdom is not adequately sharing the resources that the kingdom needs. And what are the lessons involved around the situation for everyone? Obviously, it can be seen from that perspective. And we have to rely on each other to support ourselves, to ensure that we are helping our community, because the king figure of this card is not going to lift a finger for that. Now, I'm looking at it from that lens, but this can also be us. In what ways do we move in that way in the world? Because we're very quick to be like, oh, well, we know who that is. We know who does that. But we can see that in our external reality. So in some shape or form, how is that at play in our own lives? How do we sometimes not even resource ourselves or resource the people around us where it's healthy? This is a very interesting card to get. And 4 is a number of stability. So again, very Taurus-like. Pentacles represents the earth, represents our connection to the physical realm. So this could be a card of saying, let go even of your old ways of relating to the material reality, to the earth, and find a new way, because you're clutching so hard here. You don't even have room to accept something greater. You have a whole kingdom around you, and it can take the shape of so many different things. So that's the first sort of interpretation for this card. And then we have judgment. How are we judging ourselves in this moment in time? And how are we judging others? This feels like a card where, we quite literally have an angel at the top sounding out a message for the people to hear. This feels very Mercury and Aries conjoining Neptune and Aries. So because Neptune is probably going to come up as a lot of activism, spiritual warrior, kind of fighting the good fight kind of vibes, are we expecting others and ourselves to show up in that perfectly? Because that's not going to be the case. This is a learning curve for everyone, especially with this transit that no one has ever lived through. And it's not that we need to expect each other to be perfect, so long as we are showing up and seeing, okay, does that resonate? Am I showing up perfectly? You know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. I just have to show up and be genuine in my intentions and authentic. I think that going back to this card, the thing that we judge externally is quite typically the thing that we feel like is part of our shadow, or it is a part of our shadow. It hooks into us. So the things that we feel like judging the most is because we have perhaps unconsciously a part of us that either has allowed our aura to be hooked into by that energy, and maybe we're like the opposite of that energy, or maybe we unknowingly match that energy. And when we match that energy, we can't see it clearly, we can't find a solution for it, and we can't move past it. We can't expand from it because we're so enmeshed in the story of like, no, this is what it is, and this is that character, and I'm this character, I'm the good guy, or they're the good guy, I'm the bad guy, whatever it might be. And so see in what ways you can take a step back from the story that the mind has created, or the narrative, even if momentarily, just press pause and say, actually, let me just detach from this entirely for a second, see if I can get a aerial view of it all, and observe what are the energy dynamics underlying all of this. I think we're in a moment in time where we're super aware of the fact that there are a lot of narratives that are pushed, no longer just through news outlets, but through social media in these very like hidden, covert ways, in the music, in the film industry. And it doesn't hurt to say, in what ways have I adopted these narratives, these storylines, and integrated them within my energy field without even being conscious about it. And then this is how I move through the world. This is how I judge myself, and this is how I judge others. Does that still make sense? Is this outdated? Does this need an update? Again, Mercury is no longer retrograde, neither is Venus, neither is Mars. And so we're able in this moment in time to maybe say, I, moving forward, want to set a whole new precedent on how I discern and give meaning to my reality and to the things that are unfolding. I will come to the conclusion of what they signify and what they mean for me. And then I can cross-check my answers, maybe with a trusted friend, a trusted community, and see if we're aligned and have informative, helpful, skillful debates and discussions about that, instead of just jumping on the bandwagon and being like, this is the right way to see it, this is the wrong way to see it. Because more than ever, we need that discernment. More than ever, we need those critical thinking skills. More than ever, we need to be informed and educated on what's happening. And so maybe take a break from getting all your information online and just find a reputable source, find a book that they recommend about a certain topic, and just be like, I'm just gonna challenge myself to read this book about this thing so that I know what I'm talking about, so that I know where I'm getting my information from. So that was a bit of a long interpretation there. I really hope that it made sense, but that's the week, and I'm sending you so much love and so much magic going into this. As always, let me know how it goes for you. Super curious to hear. And yeah, we're going into very interesting astrology. As always, there's always something happening in the sky, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming sometimes, a little bit confusing. If you ever want support or further clarity, or just a container to explore what these transits mean for you, I offer consultations. I will link my website down below. It's audisolaris.net, and we can talk and we can explore and deep dive. So with that, I'm sending you all of the magic, and I will see you next week. Take care.